I'll just hop into it. Why PCA Technology Group? It's really a simple answer. PCA has been a trusted advisor and IT consultant in the Western New York area and across the Northeast for over 32 years now. I like to joke with them that I was 1 year old when they started the company, so I went from being the old guy in the group in my last company to being the young guy again. So it's kind of great that I get to joke around with them about that. But that being said, with the experience that they have, there's also a professional maturity that is needed in the industry to keep our clients happy. There's not much that the group here hasn't seen because of the years of experience, across the various teams that we have. And the one thing is that our real objective is always to listen to our customers first. That we feel is really the most important piece in the beginning engagement and throughout the relationship, is just listening to them, also identifying the right solutions for them in any given situation, if there's any issues that they're having and things of that nature. And by listening to them, we are able to create a strategic path, that we are able to drive savings to their bottom lines, setting them up with reliable solutions that are going to improve their efficiency and, the security of their environments. In the world that we live in today, that security piece is definitely important should be important and priority for our clients across the board. And by, listening to them first, we're able to create that strategic path, and it really just makes a much more enjoyable experience for our clients across the board. Another thing I wanted to do here today is really touch upon, the core values of the company as well, because these are also important to us. We do everything with honesty and integrity. Quality, we feel that we are a white glove IT service and have no problem, doing any hand holding when we need to. And, one of the things we do value is open communication with our clients. Like you said, we always like to listen to them, and, and that creates, an environment where we also can be held accountable. Everybody in the company also has a growth mindset, and with that, through our hard work, the strategies, working as a team and getting input from others, we're always getting 1% better every day. And, you can see that on a day-to-day experience here while working with us. And then lastly, the company does like to have fun. It's, not only are we working hard, but we create, an environment that everybody here can have fun. And, that trickles down to our clients. They can see that, keeping the employees here happy and making sure everybody is in tune with everybody else, in turn helps us keep our clients happy. The last thing I wanted to do as well is talk about the 4 principles of the company. We love to, as I mentioned before, by listening to you, we are able to tailor and right-size the solutions for your business. We understand that there is no one size fits all. So, that is important to get the right solutions in there so, that you're not having any problems. But we also understand that, we have to do our jobs in order to make sure to ensure that efficiency for you. Along with that, we take a proactive approach. With that, it's creating a better customer experience by, being able to nip any issues in the bud right away. And that in turn, goes with our 3rd principle of rapid response and resolution. Having that proactive approach allows us to get the job done quickly, identify any issues, and come to a resolution, is really that ultimate goal, and doing that quickly and efficiently. We're also integrity driven. There's no real smoke and mirrors here at PCA. When we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And, we'll also set those expectations for you to let you know when, those things are going to be done as well. Okay, now that brings us to our next slide, and why Ruckus? At PCA, as I mentioned, with all the experts that we have here, we're always evaluating solutions, so you don't have to do that. A lot of our clients fall into the small to medium business world, and price point's always important. We feel that Ruckus also gives you the most bang for your buck. you're going to get about 2 to 4 times the coverage using the Ruckus solutions, using fewer access points than the competition that is out there. In the world that we live in today, as I mentioned, security should be, at the top of your list. With more and more devices being connected to the internet, Ruckus has shown that they are the go-to partner for those enhanced solutions. They have consistent and reliable connectivity that no other Wi-Fi vendor has matched, throughout, our evaluations. And, this is done through their eco-friendly adaptive signal technology system that also has self-healing capabilities. And at the end of the day, the one thing is that, the solutions just work. We're in a day and age where a lot of people take their internet access for granted. And, the less downtime that you have, the more time you are able to focus on building your business, supporting your customers. And, throughout the presentation today, you'll definitely be able to see that. So with that being said, I'm going to be popping some information into the chat as Doug goes along here, and I'm going to kick it over to him so we can get moving.
Thank you, Jason, and good morning, and thank you everyone for spending some time with us this morning. So let me throw some big numbers at you. 22 billion. That's the estimated number of devices worldwide that connect to a wireless LAN. 5 billion. That is the estimated number of Wi-Fi 6 devices that will be shipped by 2025. If you were able to save $10,000 a day, it would take you 1,370 years to accumulate $5 billion. We've come a long way from our humble beginnings in the wireless world. If you think about it, we had 802.11b back in 1999 with its shared 11 megabit rate. The iPhone wasn't introduced until 2007. So in those early years, Wi-Fi was just an add-on, perhaps to provide internet access to visitors or guests, or to connect two buildings across the parking lot. Today, the wireless network is the network, with the wired switches in a supporting role. Wi-Fi is quickly becoming the only connectivity option for most users. So as more use cases came into being, like the iPhone, wireless grew rapidly, and because of this, the early focus was on increasing speed. For 802.11n, which is now called Wi-Fi 4, the maximum theoretical speed was 150 megabits per second. Wi-Fi 5 increased that by 6 times to a speed of 866 megabits per second. Next slide, please. With the Wi-Fi 6 standard, the greater focus has been on efficiency, optimization, and throughput, not just speed. Though these efficiencies will increase the speeds well into the gigabit range. Wi-Fi 6 aims to improve efficiency in several ways to give you consistently higher real-world performance than you would get with Wi-Fi 5. And it's going to provide better coverage, reliability, more clients, and applications. Next slide. So what are the features that Wi-Fi 6 brings to the table? I'll just offer a brief explanation of each of these. We won't go into a deep technical dive here. So OFDMA and multi-user MIMO are actually techniques that have been used for quite some time in the cellular world. OFDMA technology allows multiple users with varying bandwidth needs to be served simultaneously. What it does is it chops up each wireless channel into many smaller partial channels. A good analogy we like to use is, think of a big delivery truck, and you put one little package in that delivery truck, and it waits its turn, and it goes down the lane and delivers that one package to one client. Then the next truck gets its little package, goes down the lane, delivers to that one client. With OFDMA, we fill the truck completely, it goes down the lane and delivers to multiple clients, greatly increasing network capacity. Multi-user MIMO has the ability to serve multiple clients at the same time as well. Now, Wi-Fi 5 supports multi-user MIMO, but only in the downlink mode. Wi-Fi 6 supports up to 8 clients, both downlink and uplink simultaneously, for a significant boost in capacity. Then we have target wake time. This increases device sleep time and in turn subsequently improves battery life. It allows devices to negotiate when and how often they will wake up to send or receive data. QAM is a modulation technique. Suffice to say that Wi-Fi 5 had 256 QAM, Wi-Fi 6 has 1024 QAM, which translates to better throughput and 25% higher capacity. OFDM symbol was originally designed with indoor Wi-Fi in mind. Long OFDM symbol adds reliability and increases in throughput for the outdoor access points. And then BSS coloring it's a mechanism to address medium contention. So with the well-designed network, there are times that an access point can still hear another access point on the same channel, cold channel interference. What BSS coloring does is it assigns a color, actually a number in the code, to differentiate them. So with BSS color, an access point can identify which frames are coming from another access point and begin transmission when they are below a threshold to avoid interference. So people might ask, why should I start purchasing and using Wi-Fi 6 when all of my clients are Wi-Fi 5? Well, there are several reasons to move to Wi-Fi 6. First, Wi-Fi 6 is becoming more prevalent and there are more and more Wi-Fi 6 capable devices being shipped today, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Plus, Wi-Fi 6 access points can serve both Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 5 clients and legacy clients because it's backward compatible. However, the main point is that Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi clients both benefit from these new features because Wi-Fi 6 clients will be more efficient and will free up more spectrum and improve airtime utilization to the benefit of Wi-Fi clients. So next slide. So what is this Wi-Fi 6E? Well, the E stands for extended. So until now, the allocated spectrum for Wi-Fi has been limited to 600 megahertz between the two radios, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands. And that hasn't changed for over 20 years, which adds to the congestion constraints that we see today. So the FCC has allocated new spectrum in the 6 gigahertz band, and the Wi-Fi Alliance has included it in the Wi-Fi 6 standard. This greatly expands the range for heavily used Wi-Fi networks. And this is the first ever expansion of the Wi-Fi spectrum. And of note is that the only Wi-Fi 6 devices will be able to use this new spectrum, eliminating the need to support legacy devices within the new band. Next slide. So the spectrum is huge. It's double in size to 1200 megahertz of new spectrum. And as you can see, it provides a lot more non-overlapping channels. For example, 59 20 megahertz wide channels are available. And now it makes using 80 megahertz and 160 megahertz wide channels a reality, which is great news for high density venues like stadiums and convention centers and auditoriums. Next slide, please. So the key features are the extended spectrum. It offers less interference and lower latency, which is going to result in faster and better performing networks, especially for high density applications, high definition video and streaming. Next slide, please. So recapping, the Wi-Fi 6E standard will have less congestion because of many more non-overlapping channels to choose from, lower latency since only 6 gigahertz capable devices that support OFDMA and multi-user MIMO will be able to use the new spectrum. So the network won't be affected by the slower legacy devices, though these devices will still be supported by the Wi-Fi 6 standard using 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And all this to increase speed and performance. Next slide, please. So fact or fiction, all access points are created equal. There's a belief out there that access points, especially with the advent of Wi-Fi 6, are basically the same as long as they meet the standard. And while it's true that the Wi-Fi Alliance certifies the specific standards, the fact is that not all key features are mandatory. In fact, many, if not all, of the RF optimization features are considered optional. Next slide, please. At RUCKUS, we have over 100 patents providing custom hardware, custom firmware, and features that go above and beyond the standard. Next slide. So there's something called a reference design. So basically, the chip manufacturers create chips with the mandatory feature set called out by the standard. So a manufacturer can put that chip on a circuit board, add some firmware, a logo, a plastic cover, and they have a Wi-Fi 6 access point. At RUCKUS, we take the reference design and we add a dual-core CPU for our network services and drivers, as well as a proprietary CPU for our custom firmware. Next slide, please. So a prime example and a key feature is our patented BeamFlex technology. Actually, the RUCKUS brand was built on BeamFlex. So as you can see on the left are basic access points with omnidirectional antennas. But on the right, on our RUCKUS access point, shows the BeamFlex antenna arrays that are built into our access points. Next slide, please. So BeamFlex antennas are specialized antennas. And depending on which model access point you have, it can create hundreds to thousands of different antenna patterns. And these antenna patterns are changed with every packet and is actually focused towards the client. Next slide, please. So think of it this way. So if you take a light bulb and put it in the center of a room, it spreads its light energy in all directions and it diminishes over distance. Wireless RF signals work the same way. So if you were to focus the light bulb's energy or the wireless signal, for example, using a high-powered flashlight instead, the light or signal will be brighter, the signal will be stronger, and it'll travel further. So basically, that's what BeamFlex does. It takes the RF energy, focuses it towards the receiver to produce a stronger signal and improve coverage. Next slide, please. So BeamFlex antenna benefits, again, stronger Wi-Fi signals at longer ranges that are focused towards the client. And what's great is that it works with all client devices, not just Wi-Fi 6. Next slide. So another feature for RUCKUS, let's ask the question, what if a wireless LAN could listen and automatically reroute traffic to a less congested channel? Well, everybody does that. It's no big deal. If a channel gets congested, an access point will look for a uncongested access point and move there. Next slide. But what if the system were intelligent enough to predict which channel to choose? That would be RUCKUS's Channel Fly. Next slide. Channel Fly is like the Waze application, if you're familiar with the Waze application, GPS for travel. It constantly analyzes the environment and it automatically selects the best route or channel. So if it detects possible congestion, traffic jam, it detects the traffic jam and it already knows which alternate route or channel to switch to. Next slide, please. So this is our current Wi-Fi 6 access point portfolio, and we're continuing to add more models. So we have an access point for just about any requirement, from high-end, high-density to our workhorse mid-range and entry-level, specialty access points, and of course, outdoor access points. So for an example, let's take our H550 specialty access point. This access point is designed to be mounted on a single gang wall box or flat on the wall. And it's also a five port switch. It has a uplink port in the back, and it has 4 gigabit ports on the bottom. Now, if you power this access point with PoE plus or better, one of those ports can be PoE out, so you can add another device and power it, such as a IP telephone. And so these access points are very popular in hospitality, MDU, and college dorms. Something to note on our outdoor access point, the T750, is that it has an SFP interface, which means you can run multi-mode or single-mode fiber to that access point. Next slide, please. So then, and of course, we have our workhorse mid-range access points. And I'll mention here that all of our Wi-Fi 6 access points are IoT, Internet of Things, ready, in that they have integrated Zigbee and BLE radios, as well as USB interface for additional types. The beauty in this is that instead of mounting separate gateways and cables, you mount one device, and though the radios are totally separate, you're sharing an Ethernet connection and one Ethernet port. Next slide, please. So this is just a chart, a general chart to show where you may deploy some of our access points in different verticals. So for example, in education, for lecture halls and cafeterias, you might want to put our high density access points. The classroom, a good fit is our mid-range access points. In a residence hall, mid-range access point or our specialty H550. The same with hospitality. In the rooms, you might have the H550 access points, but in the convention floor, you might have a high density access point and an outdoor access point for the outdoor areas. Next slide. Public venue, stadiums, and concert halls. Of course, you definitely need high density, high performance access points. And then, of course, in the office space and retail space, our mid-range workhorse access points are a great fit there. Next slide, please. So we come back to the same question. Are all access points created equal? Well, here at Ruckus, and along with our partners such as PCA, we are big on proof of concept and showcasing the capabilities of our products. Next slide. So let me show you this great Wi-Fi test that was done, and we're really excited about the results. Next slide. A multi-vendor test was commissioned by CommScope and independently validated by a third-party consultant. We set up 2 rooms in a real-world environment. Next slide. So we had 30 Dell laptops running high-definition video, 20 MacBook Pros doing a data download, 5 iPads doing a data download, and 5 iPads doing voice over IP calls. Next slide, please. So the goal of the test was to do 30 stall-free videos on those laptops, have a high voice quality, and good data throughput. So we started the video streaming on the laptops, and then we added the voice and data. Next slide. So for the results, the Ruckus R750 was the only access point that successfully supported the 30 stall free videos before, during, and after the data voice loads. Next slide. The Ruckus R750 was also the only access point that supported voice traffic score of 4.0 or better. 4.0 is considered toll quality by the telephony world. Next slide. And the Ruckus R750 achieved the highest data throughput by a pretty good margin. Next slide. So let me mention here that the Ruckus R750 is kind of like the rock star of our portfolio, because that was the first access point by anyone to be Wi-Fi 6 certified by Wi-Fi Alliance. And they actually use that access point in their test lab as they test other products for certification. So the takeaway is that the Ruckus R750 was the only access point to meet the goals of the stress test. So pretty good stuff. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and Doug, just to take that a little further, I actually put the stress test video in the chat here. So if anybody wants to check that out, it's very impressive, and the way you guys set that up is really great. So if you guys if anybody wants to check that out on the side here, it's great to see that Doug is not blowing smoke. You can see it in live time in the video on YouTube. So just wanted to add that in there.
Great, thanks, Jason. Yeah, that's a very impressive video, and gives us some additional more information. So, of course, we need to be able to manage our access points as well as our switches, and this brings us to our network controller platforms. The one thing that's great about our network control platforms is that all of our access points are supported. So if for some reason you needed to switch platforms, it may be just as simple as a purchase of a license and a firmware upgrade. Next slide. So let's talk about Ruckus Unleashed first. So Ruckus Unleashed is our option for small organizations with little or no IT resources. Next slide. It's built on a controllerless model. So Unleashed networks use the same great Ruckus access points, but the controller functions are built into the access point firmware. There isn't a need to purchase a controller appliance. So Unleashed, it's a high performance, very simple to set up enterprise quality network that you can get up and running in under 5 minutes. Next slide.
Hey Doug, and
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pop in there too and say that for the Ruckus Unleashed series, as we talked about, we work with a lot of SMBs, and with those devices, you're gonna have the perpetual license, so you're not gonna have to have an annual licensing fee. It's that one time purchase. And when you pop those devices in, it'll also configure when you add another one maybe to your network. It also configures by the other one that it's going to be connecting to. So you don't have to worry about with some of the other competition that is out there. You have to worry about them possibly shutting off your APs because you didn't renew your licenses. But the advantages of having that Unleashed is that you don't have to worry about that too.
Yep. Very good. Great points. So when you set up an Unleashed network, one of the access points becomes the primary or master access point, and another access point will be chosen as the standby. However, both those access points are still going to continue to service clients. Now, though Ruckus Unleashed is designed for smaller deployments, it does support up to 128 access points and 2,000 clients. Next slide. So this is a great option for small organizations that need great Wi-Fi but don't have IT staff to deploy and manage it. Unleashed can be managed by a mobile app or through a simple web interface. So Jason, would you like to weigh in on how PCA has positioned and worked with the Unleashed product?
Yeah, absolutely. Right there, as I mentioned, you don't have to worry about the licensing, and then, on top of that, 70% of the devices that, businesses are going to be deploying by the end of 2020 are going to be Wi-Fi only. With that being said, to have these solutions in place is just going to be advantageous to your business, because those devices, it's also going to reduce the need for cabling. You don't have to stretch any cables, which is also going to reduce costs. You're not going to have as many drops inside your business and things of that nature. So overall, it's going to reduce that need for any type of cabling, but just the industry in general is moving towards Wi-Fi only devices. So, at the end of the day, it's going to be advantageous to have, a really solid, Unleashed series in your environment.
Excellent, great. Okay, next slide, please. So our Ruckus Smart Zone is our flagship controller platform. It's our most flexible and deeply featured option. It supports enterprise Wi-Fi for large organizations that need the scale and the flexibility and the ability to do redundancy and clusters, such as hospitality, managed service providers, and large campuses. It's a family of physical or virtual wireless LAN appliances that can support up to 30,000 access points, which is like the highest number of access points supported by anyone in the market. Next slide. So of course, this is geared towards organizations that have IT resources that like all the bells and whistles and the ability to fine tune and tweak every setting. Next slide. So then we have our Ruckus Cloud platform. Now, since the platform resides in the cloud, scalability is basically unlimited. It's managed by Ruckus, so firmware upgrades and patches are done automatically. It offers the flexibility of a cloud, and it's perfect for organizations with numerous locations because you can manage it from a single site. It's a subscription model, so it reduces upfront investments as well. Ruckus Cloud is based on the SmartZone platform, but we've taken the chief features and functions and put it into a easy to use user interface. Next slide. So lean IT departments can manage their network from the cloud via the web or a mobile app anywhere at any time. One cool thing about the mobile app is that you can add an access point by scanning the barcode on the back of the access point, and it'll add it to your cloud network. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we wrap up the presentation, I'd like to address the switch infrastructure. So what do switches have to do with Wi-Fi 6? Well, many of your higher end Wi-Fi 6 access points, and definitely your Wi-Fi 6E access points, are already being shipped with multi-gigabit Ethernet ports, as the forwarding rates of these access points are already exceeding a gigabit. In addition, these access points are going to require higher rates of power over Ethernet, PoE plus, which is 30 watts and higher. So here we have the Ruckus switch portfolio. We have everything from entry-level access to access aggregation and high-end core switches. They have the power and the features of a chassis, but the flexibility and cost efficiency of a stackable. And many of our switch models are purpose-built for Wi-Fi 6 in that they offer those multi-gigabit ports and the higher levels of power over Ethernet. Next slide. So the reason we need to take into consideration our switching and as well as our cable plant is this chart. The increasing demands of wireless networks are resulting in Wi-Fi refresh cycles that are averaging 3 years. However, the average switch recycle for enterprise is up to 7 years, and for education it's as high as 10 years. So when evaluating your current switches or upgrading to new switches, you need to consider that you'll probably need to support not only your Wi-Fi network today, but at least one or more Wi-Fi refresh cycles. Next slide, please. So planning ahead, again, consider your refresh cycles for both wireless and your wired networks. Ensure that your cable infrastructure can support the possible increase in bandwidth and PoE requirements. As far as coverage is concerned, if you're upgrading an existing wireless network and replacing access points in place, you still may want to perform a site survey because different access points, new access points, may provide different patterns and coverage, and you just want to make sure that the coverage is what you're expecting. And then we go through the normal due diligence of wireless design. We want to design for capacity and expected growth. We want to know what applications we need to support. And of course, security is huge. So we have bring your own devices, role-based access and authentication. Ruckus has a great onboarding application called CloudPath. Now, I needed to unfortunately add this final bullet here. So when planning for deployment, take into consideration the possible long lead times for equipment due to the chip shortage, which of course is not only affecting our industry, but it's also affecting the auto industry and appliance industry. So, work with PCA and Ruckus, and we'll work with you to try and improve and meet your project timelines. Next slide. So as mentioned before, we love to showcase our products. If there's anything you've seen today that you would like to have additional information or a live demonstration, or even the implementation of a proof of concept, contact the folks at PCA and we'll be glad to set something up. Next slide. Thank you, and I believe it's time for Q&A.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Doug and Jason, for these insights. Seems like you definitely stirred up some questions. I know I got some on my end, so we're just going to jump right into the Q&A. And if anyone does have a question right now, please go ahead and submit it in the chat, and we'll make sure we get to that. But this first one is for you, Doug. So you mentioned that Ruckus Unleashed allows you to manage an entire network from a phone or a web browser. What are some examples of the type of metrics or features that it displays?
Yeah, so the web interface and the phone app are actually a complete management platform. So you would be able to complete common management tasks. You can create wireless networks, add access points, add wireless networks, rename wireless networks. You can upgrade your access point software. It shows traffic graphs for the past hour or 24 hours. You can turn a radio on or off. You can get client information like the IP address and MAC address, which access point the client is connected to, what channel. You can block clients. It has some troubleshooting tools as well, like speed flex and ping and trace and things like that. So just about any management function you need is included in the application.
Great. Okay, thanks for that. And this is for you, Jason. So what is the average time it takes to get a new Wi-Fi solution like this up and running?
Oh, well, that is a good question. So it really would just depend on the environment that we're going to be working in. As I said, we always like to come on site and check everything out. But once we establish what AP we are going to put in, it shouldn't take less than a couple hours to get that up and running with the engineering team that we have here.
Awesome, great. Another one for you, Doug. What is the average downtime for Ruckus Wi-Fi solutions?
That's a kind of hard one to answer, to come up with an actual number. First of all, our solutions are enterprise class and very reliable, and we have a lot of great reviews out there. But to come up with an actual downtime number is difficult in that our solutions span from 5 access points in an unleashed environment to thousands of access points and users in a virtual smart zone network. So it's hard to pin down an actual number. But like I said, our solutions are very reliable. They're all enterprise, including Unleashed. They're not consumer grade, but they are enterprise grade equipment and solutions.
Great, that makes sense. We actually have a question that just came in the chat. So can we convert from Unleashed to the more robust managed controller?
Yes. Yeah, like I said before, the access points are supported on all the platforms, so you can switch from one platform to another, depending on which platform you're going to and coming from. There might be you may have to buy, for example, if you're going to cloud, you'd have to buy a cloud license for each access point, and then you would need to do a firmware upgrade, a firmware flash to support the new platform that you're moving to. And we also the folks at PCA and Ruckus engineers, we have some tools that will help with the migration from one platform to another.
Great. And I guess for you, Jason, what size or kind of what model, does PCA typically suggest for small businesses in terms of different, APs, Wi-Fi solutions?
Yeah, for some of the clients that I have been working with recently, and this is something I forgot to mention, is that a lot of when we're going in and evaluating, a network for a client that maybe they didn't have somebody on an IT staff, typically we see that fall under the financial team or the operations team sometimes, or the youngest person in the building that has, tribal knowledge of how, these things work. We're usually seeing them using just their Spectrum router. And, that's really, in terms of security, it's not great. And in terms of coverage, it's not great. But for the clients that, I've interacted with recently, it's usually the 550 and the 650 series.
Great. Thank you. And it looks like we have some more great questions coming in the chat here. Is there a version of Ruckus products for home office use with Wi-Fi 6 and a switch? Looking for App 30 devices using Teams, Zoom, and video streaming. Any thoughts on that one, Doug?
Well, yeah, again, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, but we have Ruckus deployments of our access point portfolio in homes and home offices. We actually have a partnership with a home builder that uses our access points and small switches when they're building brand new homes. So yeah, we have switch models that are 8-port or 12-port switch models that offer PoE, and then depending on how robust you want your network in your home, just about any of our access points from the entry level to the mid range will work. And because of our technology, you probably use less access points than you would with a competitor.
Great. Looks like we have another question off that. Can we support a mixed environment, Wi-Fi 5, 6? We currently have R320, T310 devices.
Yes. Like I said, Wi-Fi 6. So R320 is, I believe the R320 and T310 are Wi-Fi 5 access points, but Wi-Fi 6 is backward compatible. So if you have Wi-Fi 6 access points, they will support legacy clients like Wi-Fi 5 and before that. So yeah, you can support a mixed environment.
Great. And kind of just to bring it all together, what would you guys say is just the #1 benefit in having Wi-Fi 6 at this point?
I'd say that, throughout the presentation, there's obviously, we were talking about, increased capacity and, because of the density that our environments have to, take on. With more and more devices becoming, IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, more and more devices are connecting to your network, whether it be, it's not just, the desktops in your building, it's, iPads, it's, maybe your, whatever you're using for, what am I going to say here? I'm trying to say your heat and that management and everything like that, and iPads and cell phones and everything like that. So the more devices you have connecting to that, that it's just going to increase that capacity. So that's pretty much the benefit of having, the Wi-Fi 6 is just, increased capacity and density in the environment.
Perfect.
Sorry, I stumbled there a little bit.
Doug, anything to add?
Yeah, I have to agree with Jason. Increased capacity is big, especially with the growth in the number of mobile devices we're seeing, and with IoT is growing rapidly as well. So Wi-Fi 6 is going to have to support Internet of Things devices and sensors. So the Wi-Fi 6 ability to serve multiple clients simultaneously is huge.
The word I was looking for was thermostat. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, let's just make sure there's no other questions coming in the chat. Looks like that's just about all our questions up to this point. I do want to be mindful of everyone's time, so I guess we'll go ahead and conclude. So just a reminder, you can expect an email from PCA this week that includes the webinar recording. You can also visit pcatg.com/ruckus for more resources and information on the solutions that we talked about today. And if you would like kind of just a one-on-one conversation about how Wi-Fi 6 can benefit your business specifically, please don't hesitate to reach out to Jason or the PCA team, and we'll be sure to assist you with that. We'll even get you those prizes that I mentioned, just kind of as a token of our appreciation. So with that being said, big thank you to our speakers, Doug and Jason, and from everyone at PCA and Ruckus, we want to give a special thank you for attending. And please be on the lookout for more webinars this fall. We always enjoy doing these events and really appreciate you guys engaging with us. So we'll definitely be in touch. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.